5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. 9 o'clock hour on Thursday mornings means it is roundtable time. And the crew is with us, the MGoBlog Roundtable crew that is. Glad to have them back. Sans one member, that is Seth Fisher this morning. I said to Ira Weintraub yesterday, I think it was, I said, man, I'm a little under the weather. I said, I feel like Brian. I mean, a little bit like Brian.
No, you said you didn't quite feel like Brian.
Not quite like Brian in that, my they're like these walking incubators, walking incubators of whatever thing is going around the school, and they brought it home to me, and then I bring it to the air. But I'm like Brian that I'm still on the air, and Brian Cook from MGoBlog is with us this morning. Brian, good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm good. I'm feeling better. That's nice. I'm sorry for your troubles.
Yeah, but I'm like you. I'm here. I'm ready to go. As is Craig Ross. Craig, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, glad that you guys are with us. And Brian, I started off last week's show sort of lamenting a present and future where I questioned whether we would wake up with a settlement in college athletics, a settlement in college football. Would the day ever? And here we are a week later, and that day is here. The settlement has come to college football, to college athletics. The significance of that is what? Do you think that calm has come to college football in the way that Charlie Baker is saying? He acts like the day is here. All is settled. All is right in college football now. Do you think that we are there now? We are at the fine.
No, we're not. So there's already been a Title IX lawsuit filed. There's already, I think something like 200 to 300 athletes have opted out of the settlement. The only reason you opt out of the settlement is because you want to sue. There's ongoing lawsuits from Denard Robinson and others where they're not accepting the fact that they want to be part of this class. So really, the only thing that is ever going to stop the cavalcade of lawsuits is some sort of congressional intervention. And they've been talking about, taking the House settlement and like codifying it and then providing whatever exemptions you need to provide so that, college sports can kind of move on with a framework that they understand is going to be the framework moving forward. Now, whether we ever get to that point, I couldn't tell you. But the House settlement is law for now, and teams are preparing for this future. There was a lot of talk about, this is going to be the end of NIL deals that are clearly pay for play. People trying to get deals in under the wire. So Najee Kennedy, the pitcher for Texas Tech, who was the first $1 million softball pitcher, got like an quote unquote extension for next year. Or House was settled fully. So those kind of deals they're going to look at now, but there's an Athletic article about all this where there's a lot of quotes about like, how is Deloitte going to do any of this? Like, I don't think this is real. So I think there's going to be lawsuits about that, where you're trying to restrict the free flow of money to these athletes with this, clearinghouse kind of thing. Someone's going to sue about that. Someone's going to sue about 4 years of eligibility. Everybody is going to sue the NCAA about everything until there is some sort of law that deals with college sports and says this is the deal and this is how we're going to deal with it moving forward.
There's a scene in my favorite all-time movie made by a Michigan grad who was actually in one of my classes, Lawrence Kasdan, Body Heat, where Mickey Rourke is a torch being represented by William Hurt, his attorney, and William Hurt is going to do a arson. And Mickey Rourke said, I owe you. Let me do this arson for you. because there must be ways to mess it up. Doesn't use those words. Must be 50 ways to mess it up. And if you can think of 20 of them, counselor, you're a genius. And counselor, you ain't no genius. And I feel like that's a lot of what's going on here. I sat back and I thought, okay, there's going to be 82.1 more scholarships at Michigan, according to Ward Manual. Most of those, as far as I can tell, are going to be in men's sports. You're going to have probably a few in hockey, maybe 10, 8, 20 in baseball, 20 in football. That's 50. And you look at other sports, for example, men's tennis right now gets 4.5 scholarships, I believe. I think women's get 8 or 9. There are going to be some addition to women's sports scholarships, no question. But I'm guessing most of them are going to be on the men's side. And I thought, maybe erroneously, that the way the scholarships were apportioned was to comply. The reason why, except for football, you've got more women's scholarships than men's scholarships, is that you're trying to comply with Title IX concerns. And so if you now add 82 scholarships that are 50 or 60, say conservatively men, I wonder if there's an imbalance or an issue there. Then you've got the question of revenue sharing. The number seems to be 20.5 million at the moment. And Ward and other most athletic directors of big schools are saying 70 to 75% in football. Kentucky and UConn are saying something else. They're saying 50% to basketball. And I think Butler is saying, we don't even have any football, bring it all to basketball. Well, they may have an easier problem there if they split it between men's and women. But is there a Title IX violation somehow if 90% of this money goes to men? As per Ward's statement, it seems like that'll be the case. And so that poses an issue. Maybe next week, Joe will be able to sort out for you, but I mean, he can probably sort it out analytically, but I doubt if he can sort out an answer. And then you've got the question of the NIL piece of it. Anything over 600 has to be reported. Now, I don't know. It sounds like this is going to be as an independent contractor. I assume that piece of it at least. I don't know about revenue sharing, whether that's done as an independent contractor, which raises certain, at the very least, tax issues. But the Deloitte, who's handling that, apparently has 12 criteria to determine whether the NIL transfer comports with notions of fair market value. Good luck there.
Well, the funny thing is like, if you
go
really
ahead.
want Michigan to like get recruits, as soon as they commit to Michigan, you got to follow all their social medias, because this is going to that's going to be a thing that they're looking at. Like,
that's relevant. You're right.
Like, there's the article about Kennedy's $1 million, and it's like, yeah, she's got like 30,000 followers on Instagram, but that's not in the realm of like, we would pay you $1 million. So, but like a Bryce Underwood, like the numbers that you can bring is like, I've got X followers and all that stuff. Those are going to be the only hard numbers in any of these conversations. Perspective of the athlete, like obviously the amount of money, but like, just like for a high school or college athlete to be like, so this is why I actually quote unquote deserve this money. That's going to be more or less the only thing they can bring to the table. And if this clearinghouse actually survives, a legal challenge, which is definitely going to happen, then they're going to be at sea for the most part. Because like, how much is Bryce Underwood worth in a sponsorship deal? I don't know. Why do they know?
Yeah. We talked about this morning. How does it stand legal scrutiny? The NCAA, or this commission, this clearinghouse, sort of arbitrarily or subjectively coming in and making an assessment of value for an entity, an outside company that of value. That this isn't Bryce Underwood isn't worth, or Arch Manning isn't worth $1 million to this car dealership. Billis is not. Some third string quarterback isn't worth $1 million to a car dealership in Ann Arbor. Says who? If it's Bryce Underwood, if he's the third string quarterback, who are you to say that's not worth $1 million? If Arch Manning is the backup quarterback in Austin, who are you to say that's not worth $1 million to that company? And if you parse the language though that they came out with the clearinghouse, what they said was they'll flag these deals, and they were talking 90% of the deals would have been flagged, but the student athlete and the school, they could go through with the deal anyway. It's subject to further scrutiny down the line, but the student athlete could actually proceed with the deal. So they're actually restricting the deal. Ira brought up the language in the Alston case that was talking about how the school had no legal right, or NCAA had no legal right to restrict the earning potential of a student athlete. So I wonder if that's the legal wiggle room that they're sort of building into this language, Craig, that they aren't actually restricting the deals here, and that this is just some big scare tactic. They're like, hey, proceeding risk, we flagged this deal. You can go through with it. We might come get you. And so watch out.
Well, a couple of things, Sam. First, as I get it, the clearinghouse will not deal directly or perhaps even indirectly with NIL deals. They're only dealing with revenue sharing within the universities. That's what
correct. Clearinghouse, any NIL deal that an athlete signed valued at $600 or more has
no. That's
clearinghouse.
That's been, but the clearinghouse has turfed that, as I gather. They've turfed it to a, now maybe I'm wrong, but as I read it, it looks like they've turfed it to another entity, which is Deloitte accounting firm.
Same thing. Deloitte is running the clearinghouse.
Well, they're running the clearinghouse, and they're running it independently, I believe. I mean, there might be some oversight, but Deloitte is running this on their own, but they have certain criteria, and that is, and there are 12 of them. One of them is the type and scope of the quote deliverables. Another is the athlete's marketability, and as Brian pointed out, public profile, comparable market deals or realities, and some other stuff. I don't know. Brian's point is right on. If a car dealership wants to give a second string lineman $500,000, I have a hard time figuring out why that's going to be a problem. And now here's what I guess the legal arguments are going to be. My guess is you come to Michigan and you sign for some piece of the action on revenue share, your scholarship, some element of revenue sharing, and the right to your own name, image, likeness. And in that deal, it'll say, my guess, that when that you agree to be bound by these particular set of rules, including arbitration on the NIL piece. Because right now, the way it's set up, if you don't agree, if the Deloitte says, hey, this one violates fair market value or whatever you want to call it rules, then there's an arbitration. That's how that issue is resolved. Now, let's say you lose the arbitration. Can you file a lawsuit? Well, you can always file a lawsuit, but will the court say we have jurisdiction to hear this? That's the question. If you sign some document going in saying, I agree, I'll take XYZ dollar, I'll take my scholarship, I'll take XYZ in revenue sharing, I own my NIL, but that's subject to current rules, and you sign on the bottom line, have you made a sufficiently knowing waiver in that contract to leave it as an arbitrated result? I don't know the answer to that one.
So,
Maybe Joe does.
a question, and this is maybe intuitive, but are you waiving your right at the revenue share, or are you also waiving your right to participate? Are you just waiving your right at the revenue share?
I suspect that it'll be could be. I mean, if I was the NCAA or whatever they are now, the clearinghouse, I would want these contracts to be fairly comprehensive. Now, which
If I'm Bryce
not,
Underwood, I just waive the
Mhm.
rev. I would just waive the rev share. Okay, fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hear what you're saying. You could say, "Hey, I ain't signing. I don't care about my, revenue sharing with the school because getting XYZ and NIL and then again, what jurisdiction does the clearinghouse have over that individual?" Um, and so that's a very fair point. I don't know, and it's said there must be 50 ways this thing can go wrong. And it'll take a very smart person, smarter than me, to figure out all of them. And maybe it was you that said it, Sam or Ira or Brian, that this ain't resolved.
No, it's not
This
resolved.
ain't resolved.
And frankly, I mean, if I'm the schools, man, get the conferences. I get why the conferences want to do this, but some of the schools involved, like the heavy hitters, like these are not necessarily my terms personally. I would be a bit reluctant to forge ahead with this, because
Forge
I
ahead with what?
to forge ahead with this settlement as is, because I don't think that this is going to be the thing that moves the ball like they think is going to move it. You think that this Title IX lawsuit is going to be the thing. Man, the first deal that's challenged, I think, is going to nuke this whole thing.
Well, it's not going to nuke the whole thing. It might nuke that portion of it, right? Like the checking out the NIL deals is not like a core portion of the
I agree with
settlement.
that.
Like it's a limitation that they're trying to put on. And for the most part, limitations have just not stood up in court in any way whatsoever. And this one is coming from a court, so it has a better chance than
I'm talking about the clearinghouse portion. I'm talking
yeah,
about
that's what I'm talking about. But like, I don't think it's gonna not gonna blow up the revenue sharing. It's not gonna blow the rest of the framework. It's just you can sever that part from the rest of it. And I think that's eventually what is going to happen, and that's fine to me. If some Texas Tech billionaire really wants a softball pitcher, like that's a transaction that we Americans should be able to make.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's right. I mean, I think the NIL piece of it, in some sense, can be severed from the scholarships. How many scholarships are you giving? And B, revenue sharing. Does your revenue sharing have to be across all your athletes? Does a second team rower get the same amount in revenue sharing as back on the football team?
Let's be realistic about Title IX. Like when it was implemented, it was a necessary thing. But we're in a situation now where women are 57% of the college population. Like we're no longer and like particularly college athletes, like the demographics of women's college athletes versus men's college athletes, particularly in basketball and football, are not comparable. The basketball and football, highly African American, a lot of poor people. There was, that daily article when Denard Robinson was here talking about his family gathering in the garage and watching like a cathode ray television to watch his games. Like I don't necessarily think that Title IX as it stands is still a good law because it mandates a complete 50-50 balance. Well, it doesn't mandate that, but you got to it's actually more difficult than that now because the rest of society is kind of like pushing men out of college. And I just don't think that as it stands, that law should be the way it is these days. I mean, that's obviously a personal opinion. It's not going to hold up in a court of law, but ethically, I don't have a problem with, people who are earning the money and need the money more getting it. Like that's that seems like fine to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, how did
Incidentally, the person who's the last time I heard that enunciated was Bo Schembechler, who said almost exactly that.
Well,
When
Butler had some good ideas and some bad ideas.
Yeah.
So let's.
Yeah, I'm just saying it. He was the one who stressed that point. Go
so
ahead.
I'm trying to reconcile the intent of the legislation with the application of this settlement. Clearly, that had to be taken into account with the ruling here, and they are trying to dispense this revenue. They've generated revenue. Athletics have, and in this case, football and basketball, and they're basing the dispensation of this revenue. They're basing that on who generates it. That seems different than when you're talking about Title IX and passing out opportunities that the university or that government provides in an equitable way. And if you're looking at the how they passed out 70% of football, they're doing that based on football producing 70% of the revenue. That is not the same as passing out scholarship or money from the government in a equal way to men and women. I'm trying to reconcile the two in the way that the lawsuit seems to be trying to marry the two. I don't think that the two are related at all when you talk about what actually appears on television.
Well,
Whether you talk about women's, they had like a women's golfer in there. How often is, and this is not me saying women's golf isn't valuable. This is me talking about women's golf being on television. That's not generating the revenue that they would be sharing in.
Right, and I want to make clear that one disappointing part of the settlement for me is there's no correlation between people on scholarship, sports you're sponsoring, and the amount of money that you can actually deliver. Because it's been the case now for many years that Michigan and Stanford and other athletic departments like them are carrying, 28, 30, 32 sports. The D1 minimum is like 16. And a lot of SEC teams like LSU and stuff, they're right at that minimum. And it feels like an athletic department that is offering more people opportunities to play college sports, more uh, scholarships issued. It feels like that should be correlated with an opportunity to deliver more revenue to those athletes because you have more of them. Like it just feels like the 20.5 million where it's just like this is the number, even if you don't have a ball team. Even if you even though you're sponsoring half the sports as of another team, like that doesn't sit right with me because Michigan has a lot more athletes to support than an LSU, and that doesn't feel great to me.
So, assuming that this is, let's say that this were a successful argument that worked, that wasn't taken into account in the ruling. I gotta believe it was, but let's assume that it wasn't taken into account in the ruling. Then the remedy would be for football to separate and become its own entity, which would ultimately be the demise of women's athletics as we know it. And I mean, there would be men's athletics that would suffer as well, male sports that would suffer as well. But certainly, I think women's athletics would suffer mightily as a result of the eat what you kill kind of philosophy that would certainly ensue from football separating and becoming its own sort of business model where all the revenue that they generate, they keep. That would be, to me, the resulting kind of mindset or philosophy or strategy that would come from separating the revenue sports and football, basketball from the rest of college athletics?
Well, all sports at Michigan, at least, football makes a ton of money. Basketball probably makes some. Hockey might be close to a break even. I don't know. And everything else is a money loser. I mean, I don't believe there's another sport at the University of Michigan that makes money. I mean, and I don't think you're going to say, Sam, oh, if you're on the Michigan tennis team, that loses money. You got to pay the university. Right. That ain't happening.
Well,
And it doesn't
so
make any sense. So I'm
there
sorry.
there
Yeah.
are arguments that have been made that for many smaller schools,
Mhm.
having these teams is actually a way to increase your enrollment, because
Correct.
kids want to play on the team, so that they'll be an Eastern Michigan Eagle in whatever sport that they can land
Mhm.
there. And it's part marketing, it's part like we have a vibrant student experience. So like spending that money is not just a loss. It's part and parcel of like how you present yourself as a university to the world. And if you want to have an athletic department and you want to play sports, and it seems like most do at some level, you just have to determine like what's the best for your institution. So I don't look at those things as necessarily pure losses, especially because a lot of the quote unquote cost is coming from a scholarship. And that scholarship, Michigan doesn't look at a kid who came here on the Go Blue guarantee and it's not paying in as a cost, right?
Right.
That is something that they as an institution have decided they're going to prioritize. And I'm glad that they have, and I'm glad that they do. But on the same flip side, a lot of the sports that quote unquote lose money wouldn't be losing money if you're looking at it from the same perspective, where like that scholarship cost, that tuition is a soft cost. It does not cost Michigan what they charge because they have a lot of other things that they're doing with that money. I know fact that adjunct professors aren't getting every dime that like the kids are paying for their credit hours, right? Um, so I look at it as I don't even think that you should look at costs like that. I think you should look at the revenue, and it shouldn't be purely, Michigan like football makes 70%, and table tennis doesn't make anything, so the table tennis
Yeah.
people don't get a thing. Like
Right.
I think that you want to, even you want to take a little bit from football and give it to other kids in other sports. But the reality of the situation is the reason that there's a revenue to share in the first place has to do with a limited number of sports. And it's not unfair to say that they who makes the money should get the bulk of what they've earned.
Yeah. I agree with what you just said. It is still some balancing, some compromise, but a part of what makes, say, the University of Michigan a great institution is the athletics. And it is football, but it's also everything else. And, so in fact, if you go back historically, the University of Chicago was founded on athletics, primarily football, but also everything else. I mean, uh, they that John D. Rockefeller wanted to create a university, Chicago, and he wanted to compete with Leland Stanford. He didn't know how to do that because there were already good universities in Chicago, Northwestern, others, and so he decided, I'm going to create a football team. This is the truth. I'm going to create a football team and I'll get Amos Alonzo Stagg from Yale to come in and run it and be our athletic director and run baseball. And they built the university around the football team.
Well,
And there were similar things that happened between Yale and Harvard back in the 1880s and 1890s. And so a part of what makes a university great is not just the academics, it's the entire, others would disagree, the diversity of it, the athletics, the music, the entire breadth of the university. So
here, I agree. I believe that athletic diversity is a compelling interest of the university at large.
yeah.
And this gets to a broader point to me. I think it is such a compelling interest that it should be an initiative for the entire university and not just the athletic department.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, there already is a rev share. I mean, the athletic portion of this is 20 million, or the player portion of this is $20 million, right? How much money did the athletic department bring in as a whole? They brought in more than $1 million.
Yeah, I think it was close to 200, maybe. I don't know.
Close to $200 million. So they're getting 10%. In the NFL, it's like 50%. It's like a 50-50 split. So this is not like this collectively bargained thing where they're getting this big share of the pie, this half and half share of the pie. They're getting 10%, and then the department is dispensing the rest of that revenue accordingly. Other sports are getting, I mean, obviously they got to pay their employees, they got to pay administrators and whatnot, but other sports are benefiting greatly that revenue. You can look at other places that are taking money from the institution. I actually don't have a problem with that, and because I actually kind of feel like such an interest of the university that the university should be sharing in the cost of maintaining those other sports. It shouldn't just be football and basketball that are, I won't call it burden, but it shouldn't just be the responsibility of those sports to maintain the athletic diversity of the campus. It should be the campus that is maintaining the athletic diversity of the campus. But as it's modeled at Michigan, it is just the responsibility of football and basketball. But as it stands, we think about revenue share as just this $20 million that is and split up. And I think that's not the way to think about it. The revenue is being shared right now. And this lawsuit makes it look like it's just that $20 million pie. And I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah. Well, that's right. But I mean, whether you're ever going to get that sort of cosmic view is a sort of universal consciousness or a court consciousness is a whole other thing.
It's that players eventually they'll, I don't know how long in the future, but they'll start thinking big picture enough to organize. Say, wait a minute, 20 million. Some of them are already thinking about that. 20 million. And you brought in how much? Wait a minute.
Well, I mean, I think that there is an argument that college athletic department shouldn't necessarily be shoving the same percentage of the revenue to the players as a pro enterprise. Like, they are different. And I want to I think that's an argument that you can and should make. Like, you got to go to school, you know, sometimes, if depends on what school but it's a different, I think it's okay for something to be different. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, the post office doesn't make a profit. And it's not supposed to make a profit.
Right.
Does Social Security make a profit? No. We do things for reasons other than that. And a university is a thing that does have principles other than we're going to maximize shareholder value.
You are correct, but it's 10%. It may not be 50%, but is 10% the right number? That is something that
it's more than 10% if you look at the value received by many of the athletes, which is their tuition, room, board, services provided.
They're
so
trying
it's
to
more
keep
than that.
A quote unquote level playing field, which is a ridiculous.
Right.
It was never level. It's never going to be level. But there are smaller schools who are like, well, we don't have this $20 million, and that's fine. Just don't get for some departments, it's more than their revenue in the athletic department.
Yeah.
And some it's 20%, but the cap applies to everybody at the same place. And I'm just like, well, does that make sense long term? And the answer is probably no. But right now, it's well, we're getting away with just 20% of our athletic department revenue, and Butler is this is all of it. This is all we got.
Well, Butler seems happy. They're saying we're gonna kill it in basketball.
All right, I guess it's not the right example. A Central Michigan,
Central,
an Eastern Michigan,
right.
those schools are looking at this and they're like, well, sucks for us. But
we got to get to a break. We will continue on the other side on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at the big1050.com.
Brian, have you,
by the way, I just wanted to say to the chat, we are aware of the glitching screen. We think it's StreamYard. You don't have any issue going on with the connection at the station. So we think it's StreamYard is having some glitching issues right now, folks.
Yeah, because I'm getting that flack. I mean, I can hear everything fine, but I'm getting flickering in the video. Have you guys, maybe Brian has, seen this talking head on TV? He's an Australian guy. He's an economist here at U of A, Justin Wolfers.
I know who he is. Yeah.
I have a hunch he's a sports fan. I got to want, he has his Michigan Harbaugh hat up behind when he's being a talking head on television. Very interesting guy. The other day he said, his PhD is from Harvard, and he said, as far as I'm concerned, Harvard is just the men of the East. And I thought, oh wow,
they made shirts like that.
I know for many years, but I just thought it was kind of funny that this guy with the heavy Australian, and he's brilliant, incidentally. His economic analysis is so spot on.
He's very pithy. Like, he's very good at pointing out things without going into detail that like a layman like myself would be like, my eyes would glaze over.
Yeah, exactly. And that's his thing, I think, trying to explain, economics or econometrics even to, average people. And I'm going to find this guy. I think we need him on the roundtable one. I'm serious. I'll bet he would do it. I just have a hunch this guy would do it and come on and talk about sports. So I'm going to wander over to his office and see if I can talk to him a bit. Anyway.
Have you guys watched the latest commitments? Watched their video at all?
I don't watch commitment videos. I never have.
I mean, I can't watch it because it's just going to change in 2 months anyway. It feels like. I mean, okay. I don't know how you do it, Sam. But what was selling?
Watch Alistair Vallejo. We won't get into it on the other side then. Just watch Alistair Vallejo, and I'm curious what you guys think.
Do you mean his like highlights or his commitment?
Watch his highlights. That's
okay. Yeah, I do.
Well, I mean, yeah, that I have looked at a bit, and everyone says Mason Graham, and I say, I can kind of see that. I mean, is that what you see, Sam?
Exactly what I see. That is exactly what I see.
Yeah, I mean, if you, he's about the same size. He's got that incredibly quick first step. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be a good player. I mean, I don't know where he's rated, 500 something like that.
No. He shot up the rankings. He's up to 204 now.
Oh, okay. Because I know
I don't think he's done. The difference is, like, Mason was playing. He was playing modern day, and
he was playing big timers. Yeah,
big timers. And this kid is not playing the modern days. So if he's gonna
coming back in about 15 seconds, guys.
You don't know if he's gonna be hitting the ground running like Mason.
I know that Notre Dame, there was a lot of stuff on their posting board.
They came hard. They came hard at the
end. Guys, coming back live on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at thebig1050.com. Before we get back to it, I want to remind those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com, call 1-800-NEW-FORD to make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Why? Because Brighton Ford is the ultimate destination for your new car. Head in, settle into the seat of your favorite vehicle. Take control as you drive off the lot in the car or truck that was meant for you. Go to Brighton Ford, call 1-800-NEW-FORD, or go online at BrightonFord.com and take advantage of employee pricing. You pay what we pay From now through June 30th, well-qualified can lease a 2025 Ford Escape for as low as $247 a month, with only $3,500 down, plus first payment, taxes, doc fee, title license, state fees. Do it signing, security deposit waive, 7,500 miles per year, 36-month lease. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD or see dealer for full details. Again, 1-800-NEW-FORD today. Employee pricing means you pay what we pay. Brighton Ford, the official Ford sponsor of the Big 1050 WTKA. Here on the MGoBlog Roundtable, we continue in the breaks. And I was just asking the fellas before we came back live on radio, if you guys have watched the video of the latest two commitments. Lou Esposito, Michigan defensive line coach, is on a roll. Mikael Blade from Chicago Simeon earlier in the week, a top 247 defensive lineman, edge player. And then just day before, yesterday, he picks up Alistair Vallejo, another top 247 defensive lineman. You specifically for a player comparison, and Craig, you hit it right away. Who I see when I watch him, and you seem to see the same guy. I'm curious your guys' take if you think if you eye with me on him.
Yeah, well, I just looking at, I haven't looked at game tape. I've looked at his highlight tape, but you can tell something on that. And I looked at his highlight tape, and the first thing that came into my head was Mason Graham. Incredibly quick first step, about the same size, physical guy, and that was my thought. And I will say that when both of these kids were offered by Notre Dame, Blade and Vallejo, and the Notre Dame boards were like somewhat sanguine about Blade, saying, well, yeah, we wanted him, but the guy we really want, Vallejo, and that would be a big major loss for us, and we're going to get him. And then the next day he commits to Michigan, and they were, disconsolate, so I think that, these are good recruits for Michigan, and great news for the football program. I don't know what Brian saw.
Yeah, Brian, I'm curious your take on. You were looking for some momentum. It seems that they're picking it up in back-to-back days. They beat out Notre Dame, but I think Craig is spot on with Notre Dame's their fan reaction. I think definitely mirrors the aggression that we saw from the Notre Dame coaching staff in their approach to those two guys in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched his tape yet, but Esposito has a great track record. And like, if Notre Dame wasn't involved here, I'd be like, well, like, Espo was the guy who made Western Michigan's line into like transfer central, where like every year it's like, okay, here's the guy who's going to go to Florida State or some major school who he recruited and developed. So, I have a lot of faith in what he's going to be able to do with guys, even on another level from where he's able to recruit at Western.
Yeah. So there was a guy, you guys remember the big time receiver that was committed to LSU, Derek Meadows.
Yeah.
I do remember.
And, they flipped Bryce, and Bryce was recruiting Derek Meadows to go with him, and Michigan made a run at Meadows and looked like Derek Meadows was going to flip. And then Notre Dame came in, and Alabama came in. And so Michigan was really, really competitive, and it looked like Derek was going to flip to Michigan. And then Alabama came in, and they kind of really blew his doors off. And then Michigan was like, oh, okay, now we go ahead, kind of thing. They didn't even fight. Alistair Vallejo's recruitment sort of reminded me of that, because they went at Alistair Vallejo and they went at him hard. And just like the fans said, they had just lost, Notre Dame in this instance, had lost Mikael Blade. And it was neck and neck he was down to Michigan, Notre Dame, and Kansas. And Kansas had no shot, right? And so it was down at the end, and the night of his commitment, it was Michigan. And Notre Dame came hard, like super hard. and that's the kind of response. It was the kind of response that if you look back at the Meadows recruitment, it was the perfect opportunity to say, you know what, go ahead and go ahead and go. Like the Meadows, just let them go. We aren't going to even respond to that. A lot more guys coming, a lot more guys you can recruit. Michigan didn't do that. They closed out on Alistair Vallejo. I thought that was very telling about what they think this guy is, what they think he's going to be. Now, I don't know if he hits the ground running like Mason.
Right. Yeah.
When I went to see him play, I couldn't, it boggled the mind. What's USC miss on this guy? He's right here in your backyard and he's playing like top competition. How does this guy slip to Boise? That just makes
Well, if I recall correctly, that entire defensive staff guy did after, like, they were not good.
That is true. That is true. And they did come back around and try to flip him after he goes to Michigan. And Mason remembered that. He's like, nah, I'm not. It's talking about USC in general. Nah, I'm not going to flip on Michigan because they knew me when kind of thing. But Alistair Vallejo, same body type, same bend, same quickness, closing speed. I just don't see it's that level of competition where you can't make the projection to know or to actually you don't know in any of these to be able to project that is the transition is going to be quick. Like Mason started his first game as a freshman. I don't know if it's going to be as quick. You can say it's going to be as quick for Alistair Vallejo, but I know this. Notre Dame came hard at the end. And when Michigan felt like they had him, and Michigan was like, we aren't going to lose this guy. They made a decision, and they don't go NIL on every guy like some schools, like Orioles hard NIL on every guy. Miami goes hard NIL on every guy. Michigan is very judicious. When, they pick and choose the guys, kind of like an NIL model. There are certain positions or certain guys that they will go like in on. And they made a decision. They weren't going to lose Alistair Vallejo. That was that said a lot to me about what they think he is.
Yeah, well, to some extent, Mason Graham was a unicorn in, coming out and playing in game one and playing well. And, right from the beginning. And I don't want to lay that on any player, regardless of how good he looks on film or what others think about him. On the other hand, I'll be stunned if that kid isn't at least an all Big Ten football player. And I'll be stunned if he isn't a guy who plays in the NFL, absent injury or other things like that. So,
yeah, listen, these are coaches, and I credit Notre Dame and some of the other coaches. Look, they obviously don't rely on the rankings because this dude was unranked like a couple months ago. Now, when they finally saw him, they corrected it quick. Like he went from being unranked to like in the 200s, like that. Like, oh shoot, we missed.
Well, that's a Mason Graham comparable too, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that we often talk about on our site is that guys often don't fall enough, and guys who rise often don't rise enough. So, there's that kind of momentum in the rankings. So I'd rather have a guy, who's ranked 200th, who was off the radar 2 months ago, than a guy ranked 150th, who used 50th. Like,
that's absolutely legit. And if you follow recruiting for any period of time, you'll see that the guys who fall usually fall too slowly and not far enough often. And the guys who are coming up don't show what they really are in the recruiting ratings. That's absolute reality.
Yeah.
So
good stuff as always, fellas. We're getting a wrap-up sign. Another big recruiting weekend on the horizon, so we will have more for you. Looking forward to that. We'll talk more about that and a lot of other things on the next MGoBlog Roundtable, of course, and of course on the Michigan Insider tomorrow here. So be on the lookout for that. We'll see you next edition of the Michigan Insider on the Big WTK online at the Big1050.com.